Who are you?
I'm your uncle,
Who are you?
Linn Hendershot. Yeah.
How old are you?
Too old, way too old. 61.
You ever think you'd live that long?
Didn't have a clue. I would have checked that a long time ago.
How about your dad? How old
He
is
was he was 56.
Wow. Do you ever think you'd outlive him?
Nope. No, I think there was kind of a all my father's brothers, none of them lived beyond, well, one lived beyond 57, and that was his youngest brother, Kenny, and he had a massive heart attack I believe it was 57, but he lived to be nearly 70. But other than that, everybody had died at either 56 or 57 on the male side.
What'd they die of?
It was, well, a combination of things. They all had heart issues. My Uncle George, my Uncle Jim, Dad, Uncle Kenny. The only one that didn't was Uncle Virgil. But Dad died of a malignant brain tumor when he was 56. And his brother Virgil lived to be 57. And that was non-heart related. That had to do with cancer also. But the rest of them were primarily hearts, including Dad's father, who died at 56 of a heart attack.
Do you think any of that was what they ate?
Well, without question, I think they all were raised on farms, and the pork was a main staple in their diet. There was one end of the hog or the other that they had at virtually every meal. They cooked with lard. They loved bacon and ham, and when they cured their hams, they were salt cured, so they're extremely high in salt, and that probably the way they cured the meat probably had as much to do with the heart problems as the pork itself. But they were they were walking cholesterol tests. They all had, I'm sure, this was way before we checked cholesterol and things like that, like we do now. But their diet, I would think, without question, they were strictly a meat and potato people, and lots of meat, a lot of potato, and an incredible amount of homemade bread. These were farming people, rural people, that they would make it in Weight Watchers. They were all very strong and not heavy. They were very well-built people, but their diet, I think, definitely did have an impact.
Hard working, though.
Hard work. Extremely so. Extremely so.
Burning the candle with both hands.
Seems to be...
What about eggs?
I'm sure, yes. Yes, eggs and anything that would grow on the farm. Of course, whole milk. They milk cows. They were primarily dairy farmers. That's how they made their money. So they also raised hogs. And chickens were... There were plenty of chickens, plenty of eggs. So all these things there's... And the only vegetables you had were, well, what you grew in the garden, but they weren't. A lot of canning. And of course, some types of canning, you use salt to preserve the food. So heavy salt intake.
How did Grandma live so long?
Well, here again, you go back to the genes. My grandma, your grandmother, my mother, Linn Hendershot, she lived to be 92. But that family, her mother lived to be 86. And her great-grandmother was, I believe, 94, 95.
What's her name?
Mam Golden. Oh. They called her Mam. But she was in her 90s. My granddaddy Kirk, your great-grandfather Kirk, he lived, I think he was 82. So they all lived into their 80s. But when you get down to Mother's generation, of course, she had 3 brothers, and her 3 brothers all loved to eat, and they didn't live as long as their parents did, because they didn't eat as healthy, in my opinion. Uncle Bob, of course, a very large man, smoked. Uncle Lem was
Smoking didn't help.
It didn't smoke, it didn't help him either. And he owned a restaurant for 30 years, so he ate a lot. And see you, Sharon.
Bye, Sharon.
Okay.
All right. See you in a little while. See you in a couple months. I'll be back.
And the oldest brother, mother's brother, was Uncle Don. And he was also a quite large man who loved to eat. And didn't smoke quite as much as the others, but he did have a, he wouldn't have made it in the Weight Watchers class. But that was diet. Diet is very key, I think.
How have you lived so long? What have you eaten right?
Well, the grace of God and a $12,000 ventilator, you can do anything, I guess. The first thing you do is get the extended warranty on the ventilator.
Uh-huh.
And that's a big thing to do. Make sure it's in good repair at all times. But I think I've had good care and an awful lot of family support. Probably has as much to do with my longevity as anything. I always feel like I've got the safety net there, and that safety net is family and friends, and I just have I've got things I look forward to each day. I look forward to I've always got a to-do list, and I feel like it doesn't get any shorter, it gets longer, if anything. And I think that's probably what keeps me going. The fact that if I didn't wake up in the morning and have something to look forward to, why live? And I think a lot of people, as they grow older or get in bad health, they kind of give up. They feel like they have nothing to look forward to, and that's a shame. I think a lot of people can offer so much more if they would just be a little more positive about their future and what they can do in the community.
Wow. That's a good message to have.
Which you try.
You've been setting a good example for everybody, haven't you?
Well, when I was younger, I used to try to build a career, and I'm not interested in making a career anymore. I'm interested in trying to make a difference. So that's different, and it's all in your head. It's all between your ears. And I wish more people would do that. Get a lot more accomplished.
So, do you think serving others, service to others, is that part of the key of what you've been doing?
I think so. I think I had a number of pretty good jobs when I was younger. I don't know if they paid that much, but they were high-profile jobs in sports, and I worked with people like the United States Auto Club, where you had 21 millionaires, you were big egos and all that type of thing. And pro football, you had that, and you always felt like you're in the fishbowl. But we worked with the Olympics in Atlanta, back getting ready for that for 4 years, from 92 to 96. But I really didn't do anything of in my opinion, of a positive nature that actually impacted on people until I got sick, until I thought I was going to die. And I spent 3 months in Atlanta in a hospital, 2 of which was in intensive care. And when you can't talk and you're on life support and you think that every breath's going to be your last one, but your mind's working, you have a lot of time to think and listen. And sometimes it's a blessing not to be able to talk. That
was the only time in your life you've ever had that blessing.
My grandfather, my father, and your grandfather, Brownie Hendershot, no Hendershot, once told me, I was debating him on something, I didn't agree with something he had said, and his comment to me was, boy, you don't learn a damn thing as long as you're doing all the talking. You only learn when you listen. And there's a lot to be said for that. I wish we'd get some of our leaders to do a little more listening and a little less rhetoric, and maybe we can get to the bottom of things and make things work. But that was a lesson learned, and then Um, gives you a lot of time to think, and then you find out that you're not going to die, or not at the moment anyway, and you learn to live with the predicament you're given, in my case the ventilator, and the problems with breathing, and you learn how to deal with the ventilator. And then you say, okay, now what else am I going to do? What can I do now? You have two choices. You can put your nose against the window and watch the parade go by, or you can get out and be in the parade. So I chose to try to take, I don't know if I'm going to live a day, a year, or time doesn't matter. But we're going to make the best out of tomorrow and see what we can do. There's been now 9 years of tomorrows. And it's been 9 years since I was put on a ventilator, which was Valentine's Day in 1997. And every day is an adventure. And I'm having the time of my life. The writer for the Baltimore Sun did a story on me a couple years ago, and he called it Life's Extra Innings. And this is like, I'm a big baseball fan, so a lot of people think baseball is boring. And you know, when you go pay for a ticket, you're paying to see a game, and you're paying to see 9 innings. So if it's tied, to me, that's free baseball. You know what I mean? You're getting more than what you paid for. And I'm getting, in my case, this is extra innings to me. So I've got some extra innings that I want to try to not maybe hit a home run, but I want to make sure that there's still pitchers in the bullpen that we can accomplish some things that'll make this community maybe a little better. I'd like to hope that as we get a little older, we feel like we're gonna die. We become great philosophers, and we get into the legacy modes. What I'm you try to make a footprint in the sand where you know people you've been there, that you passed this way, and that's kind of where I'm at today. Just trying to make a difference for somebody each and every day, and then going to the next day.
What's been your motto?
There was one that was we've always I've always been known. I like to say I'm like a good junk dealer. I don't really want anything unless it's broken, you know. So you know, because my whole life I've had various physical issues because of the polio or respiratory problems or whatever. So you deal with you deal the cards. You play the cards that are dealt you. And somebody at the hospital, Westerburn Hospital, said one day, he said, when it comes to you, Hendershot, you're the lemonade man. And I said, when life gives you lemons, you make lemonade. So I try to be the best lemonade salesman I can be. And so if I had a motto, that would be it. My dad, there's always one that nobody really understands. He's sane, but we had a can-do dad, your granddad. He was always looking for ways, somebody tell him something couldn't be done. He would go out and figure out how he could do it. It was a challenge. And fortunately, I had some of that in me, and I think primarily from my dad. And he would, if I would ever say that I can't do something, I walked on crutches and had braces, and he had a little pet saying that can't die in the cornfield. Come on, let's try it. And whether it be driving a car, climbing steps, going to a new high school that was 2 stories, he didn't want to hear the word can't. And don't tell me you can't do it until you try. And that's kind of been my monitor too. People say, if you want to get something done, tell Hendershot there's no way in the world to do it. And he'll figure out a way to do it.
What?
There's no way in the world you can do that. And he'll try to prove you wrong. And that's unfortunate. That's good and bad. You know, that can be the way, but that's kind of what makes me run.
What are your qualities?
I think
stubborn?
Yeah, to a degree.
Say it.
Very stubborn. Very stubborn. Um, don't understand the word can't. I think I'm an honest individual that looks. I'm kind of a global thinker. How's this going to impact? Not today, but 10 years down the road, or 5 years down the road. Is this whether it be something in the community or a social issue or whatever it may be? And I've always been that way. And I tireless. I think when you have polio, I don't know what happens. You run a very high temperature, and people that have had polio or infantile paralysis, I have no clue why, but they have a tendency to be type A's, type A personalities. I don't know if it's because the fever was so high it fried a certain part of her brain or what, but but among polio patients, I mean, I really believe that people like FDR, the great communicator, wouldn't have been half as good if he hadn't been through the polio experience. And I see it there's still about 300,000 those old people like myself, that before the vaccine are still out there kicking and playing pretty key roles. Perlman, the famous musician, the violinist, Isaac Perlman, he's an old polio. He's that way, he's just got the energy to burn and lots of ideas. I don't know if how high his temperature was, but I assume it was pretty high.
Tell me about the banana. What's the green banana?
The green banana.
Green bananas.
Oh, yeah. People ask me. I'm on, I don't know. I guess 5 or 6 different boards. I was just asked tonight to serve on another board, but there are always sometimes in these organizations have this long-range planning, and they want, but some things are long-range. You've got to look at them long-term. Other things you got to do as quickly as you can, and I keep reminding them I don't have a whole lot of time to fool with it. I'm not into long-range planning. Long-range planning to me is next Friday. That's why I don't buy green bananas. I want them right, because all I'm saying is we want to do what we can as soon as we can. There's got to be a long-range plan. But let's move it. I'm not very good on committees. I don't serve on committees. But if you have a task force that we got to go and we're going to get it done in short order, in the next reasonable amount of time, count me in. We'll move the ball. But to meet for the sake of meeting, like some of these committees do, that's not my cup of tea.
Never have been.
Never has been, never will be. If it's broke, we'll fix it. If it's not broke, don't mess with it.
Well, what about your level of joy and happiness over your years? What's been some of the highlights? Joy. Have you been happier lately?
I've probably been happier. Sounds strange, but since I had the breathing problem, and I've had a greater sense of accomplishment. I have worked and met some people that are extremely genuine, that I have the same goals that I have. So I would say in the last 9 years have probably been the happiest time of my life. We've had some, like I say, sports is fun. It's high profile, whether it be NASCAR racing, Indy racing, or pro football. These are all wonderful things that make good stories if you're sitting around having a beer. But are you really making a better community? Not to any degree like we are at this point. And like I say, it's good to be back in my home area, where a lot of people know me and I know them. They know the family. The family as the Hendershots and the Kirks have always been well respected in this area. I like to think that my Uncle Linn did an awful lot. He was a Kirk, did an awful lot to help the community, serving as a county commissioner for like 24 years. And from time to time, people in the community compare me a little bit to Uncle Linn, and that, to me, that's quite a tribute. And if I can just do a little bit what he did 20, 30 years ago, I'll be happy. But you know, the Kirks and the Hendershots have had they've always served in the public. We had a great-great-great-grandfather, James Kirk, who was a representative up in Pennsylvania. My grandfather, George Kirk, and his father, Lemuel Kirk, were both associate judges up in Fulton County, Pennsylvania. Your grandfather, my father, he served on the school board and did a lot of things there in Fulton County. When Fulton County became a county in 1860, one of the first county commissioners was James Hughes, another one of our grandfathers. So, Delmer Malott served as a county commissioner up there for 4 terms. He married Leslie Hendershot. So the family has always, if possible, trying to give back and been public servants wherever they can. That's true.
So you know a lot about genealogy, right?
Well, I know a little bit about our family.
Do you put the book together? Is it complete?
What I do, I have a genealogy is like trying to stop smoking. Once you get involved, it's hard to do. You just keep adding and adding and adding. When I started in the late 80s on genealogy, I thought if I could ever get 500 names, I'd really have a lot. Well, now I have over 14,000 names that are connected family-wise. So it goes on and on and on. It's a labor of love, but it's something you never finish.
Have you ever wanted to go to the Tavern of the Mormon collection?
Well, I've worked as a volunteer 1 day a week for 4 years at a family history center in LDS, Mormon church.
Was it all
in Roswell? What's that?
Well, is it connected to the one over in Salt Lake City?
And so it is. The Mormon, of course, genealogy is a very key part of their religion, and if you become a member of that particular church, you're expected to show proof how you're at least 4 generations back. So they have the Mormon Church is without question probably the world's largest and best record keepers. They keep better records than the government. If it's a piece of paper and it lays in place for more than a few weeks, it seems like they microfilm it. And they've got these vast holdings in Salt Lake City. And what they have done is set up family history centers at their larger churches throughout the United States, and they're accessible through microfilm, microfiche, anything they have out there. And more now with the computer, they have a website which is just called FamilySearch.com that you can go online and find them. Look at an awful lot. There are records online, and
we can access it here. We don't have to go there.
You don't have to go there. No.
Because I was there the other day and I started researching.
Well, it's a massive place.
Yeah.
And it's the job they do with records is just incredible.
What's our heritage?
Our heritage
The
is
Hendershot side, at least.
on the Hendershot side. We came to the United States, to America in about 1718. German. Farming background. Rented a farm. It was called a Hof, they call it. German for word for farms is Hof, and around the Mannheim area of Germany, in Bavaria. They came here. That particular unknown fact about Germany, we always think Germany's been around forever, but Germany actually became a country in 1872. I mean, after the United States, 100 years after the United States, Germany came into being. You had all these little countries or provinces, places like Bavaria. They were put together in 1872 and made a country. But during that time, there were 30 years of what they call the 30-year wars back in the 1600s, which our family was over in Germany. And these armies would come through from all these countries and claim these provinces, okay? And back then, if the Swiss took you over, or the French took you over, whoever, you were expected to take become their religion, whatever it may be. If it was a Catholic country, you were supposed to become a Catholic. So there was tremendous unrest over there for 30 years, a 30-year war over these provinces. And 3 out of every 5 people that lived during that time were killed as a result of those wars in that region of the country. So, and then you had the Martin Luther, pardon me, the Lutheran Church. He was from that area, and our people were primarily Lutherans. They were Lutherans, but they wanted out of there. It seemed like they wanted to leave Germany, and Michael Hendershot was his name. Loaded his family up. That was during the time.
How do you, S-H-E-E?
H-E-I-N S-C-H-I-D. Hendershot. And they actually came over here on a ship called the Lion, L-Y-O-N-S, Lions. And it was part of the Winthrop fleet, a big fleet out of England, a fleet of ships. And they were involved with William Penn, trying to get people to come over and settle Pennsylvania. And our guy didn't have any money. He was poor as a church mouse. And he actually came over as an indentured person. He agreed to work up the Hudson River near West Point in a facility where they made pine tar. They take the pine tar out of trees. Pine tar was a big staple. That was what they put on the wooden ships so they would float, so they wouldn't leak water. Very important to have pine tar. And they came to America for a while. They spent time on what was called Governor's Island. It was called Nutton's Island. There was a Governor Nutton Island. They were put out there. It's right there where Ellis is, Ellis Island, but not St. Mary. But if you had sick people, you left them at Nutton's Island to see if there's kind of a quarantine area. And he had a sick child. So then he went, after that was over, he went up the Hudson River to an area up around Livingston, this pine tar facility. That's where he was. And it didn't work out. It wasn't feasible. They couldn't make any money doing it. And they gave up the venture, and he and his family were told to fend for themselves. And he migrated back down the Hudson. He was looking for people that spoke German. And he ended up in what is now called Oldwick, New Jersey. O-L-D-W-I-C-K, and that's where he settled. And like I mentioned, they were all Lutheran. Michael was the oldest existing Lutheran church. You know, Lutheran church is still in existence in the United States, is the one in Oldwick, New Jersey now. He helped found that in the I believe it was about 1737, 1745.
You want to get that?
Yeah.
You back?
Yeah, I'm back.
All right, so So all that's the Hendershots, right?
Yeah, that was all Hendershots. Yeah.
So Hendershot turned to Hendershot.
Yeah, Hendershot, and why? How it got to be Hendershot, I have no idea. I have no idea.
And then Kirk, is that Irish?
No, Scotch.
Scottish.
Scotch, yeah. From around Edinburgh. That's where they came from. And it's hard to. Now they were more merchants. They were into distilling whiskey and running stores and grist mills, and they were more entrepreneurs more so than what the Hendershots were. But it's hard to trace them. Back into Edinburgh and Scotland for one reason. The word Kirk in Scottish is church. Okay, that means when they would, the church was also become the ward of orphans. Sometimes children were left on the doorstep and all that, and the church took care of them. Well, they didn't know their last name, so they gave them the name Kirk. They were a child of the church, you know. It might be William Kirk, Donald Kirk, or whatever. But so you have people that actually were Kirks, and then you were people that were wards of the church, you know, that were put there for adoption. Sometimes they were given the name Kirk. So it gets kind of confusing.
Wow.
We do know they were Presbyterian, and in Scotland you get two choices. You're either Catholic or Presbyterian. Like there's no other choices. But in our particular group, or on the Hendershot side, they were Lutheran. On the Kirk side, they were Presbyterian.
So what other mix do we have in us?
Well, we've got, like I say, we've been here many generations. We have some Swiss blood. We have some English. We have one of the grandmothers' name was Levering, 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 which is Jewish. There's the man that came to Fulton County, Jacob Hendershot. We have every reason to believe that his wife was an Indian. We have...
what year was that?
That would have been, as close as I can figure, somewhere around 1760. And that was not...
is that in Pennsylvania?
That was in Pennsylvania, in Buck Valley, Pennsylvania, which is near Warfordsport.
Padmeyer, Cherokee?
What's that?
Was that Padmeyer, Cherokee? Padmeyer, Cherokee, you told me one time.
No, I didn't say Cherokee. There weren't any Cherokees up here. They were
So
Delaware. Delaware, Iroquois, yeah, is what they would have been. Your Cherokees were much further south. They would have been in Georgia, North Carolina, Alabama. They were basically farmers. The Iroquois were not. They were hunters, and I have reason to believe that she was probably most likely an Indian, because there's never any mention of names. It was like a secret, you know. And I really believe that. There's also, he was in there in Buck Valley with his family in about 1770, 73. And in one book, they talk about a gentleman named Denis who lived in Buck Valley in 1800. And it makes note that they had a child in 1800. And they refer to that child as the first all-white child ever born in Buck Valley. So if he was the first all-white child, and our people were there 30 years prior to that, they were part something. And I have reason to believe it was Indian.
So, is that your fascination with Indian? Because I remember...
Well, I want to know. I want to learn as much as I can about Indians, about lore, you know, what the Indians of this region. Of course, Warfordsport is, before it was Warfordsport, was referred to as a village of the Tenalaways. Now, the Tenalaways were an Indian tribe. and there's two little streams that come together at Warfordburg, the Little Tenalloway and the Big Tenalloway. And of course that's an Indian word, named after the Indian tribe, the Tenalloways, which was put here again because part of the Iroquois nation.
So you feel from your genealogy that we have Iroquois in us?
I think we do.
What about Blackfoot or Iroquois or
Cherokee? Now that is my daughter. My daughter Pam married a fellow named Mike Roberson, Roberson. And they live down in Alabama now. They're Mike's grandfather on his mother's side, Mr. Carter. He is about, I think he's a quarter Cherokee rather, but you can tell he's Indian through and through. And then on his mother's side, our grandchildren's grandparents, on the other side, he was a Blackfoot.
Wow.
He was half Blackfoot. So we got Indians coming and going on that particular.
That's cool.
But they were out of Alabama.
Wow.
They were Alabama Indians.
Wow.
Cherokee are fascinating people. They really are. Are you familiar with the Trail of Tears?
Oh yeah.
Well, that was.
A friend of mine's running it right now.
Is that right? Well, of course, back in 1812, we were fighting the French, and big Andrew Jackson was trying to save New Orleans. His allies were the Indians. They helped him win, beat the British, and then by 1830, he's president, and in a little town in North Georgia called Dahlonega, Georgia, they made the first gold strike. And there was one problem with that. All of North Georgia was owned by these farmers who happened to be Cherokee Indians. And they literally gathered up these tens of thousands of people in North Georgia and Alabama and marched them to Oklahoma. The Trail of Tears it was called, and thousands upon thousands of Indians died. And it's there's no we always look at the Germans about how cruel they were with the Holocaust and all that, and what we did to the Cherokee Indians was truly shameful. The Cherokee are very educated people, had their own alphabet, they very rich in tradition, not war Indian. I mean, these were farmers, true and blue farmers. And where I lived in Roswell, Georgia, they would come in, which was part of this gold field at the time. And my subdivision there, Roswell, still had sites available. I mean, where they dug for gold, little mines, different places, right there in the subdivision. And they divided this up into little squares, little plots, and they put all the numbers to the parcels in a barrel, and they had a raffle. Or they just if you were white, you come and you could pick out pick a parcel out of a barrel, and you were given that property to mine for gold. While the rightful owners, the Cherokees, were being marched across Alabama to Oklahoma and dying and being shot along the way. One of the worst pages in American history was that Trail of Tears. That's true.
Yeah. Wow. Can you take a break for a second?
Did you know why they were marched to Oklahoma?
Who? Oh, no.
It was all about the gold, and that was it. Had nothing. Gold was the issue. That's why they wanted to take the land so they could mine for gold. The first place where they minted coins for the United States was in Dahlonega, Georgia. That's where the first gold strike in the United States was right there. And that's what the whole Trail of Tears thing was about. It's about gold.
I'm going to take a break. Okay.
Yeah.
There you go. So, tell me some of the most proud moments of your life so far.
It's hard when there's been a lot of, I guess the proudest moment is when you see people accomplish the little things and knowing that maybe you had some input in making it happen. I've seen, when Atlanta came to play his first games in Atlanta, that was kind of interesting to see that get off the ground. I've seen people like Johnny Unitas throw touchdowns. I've seen A.J. Foyt win races, Richard Petty set records. These are all things that are fine, but probably the most exciting and proudest day I ever had was at the Western Maryland Hospital. And we were dealing with I was very much, and still am, into assistive technology, gadgets, if you will, ways to enabling people to do things that they wouldn't otherwise be able to do except for the assistive devices. And we had a young guy that he's gone now, but his name was Tony Crowder. He was had a brain stem break in an automobile accident. He was totally paralyzed, and he couldn't speak. He was very alert. We had a gentleman in the hospital who could read his lips, but he had no control over anything in his life. And we got him so he could, he had a little bit of movement in his finger. He could do that motion on his, with a little bit of pressure. And we came up with a switch where he could, with some working with his dexterity and stuff, he could change the channel on his TV, and he could control something in his life after 20-some years of not being able to. And to see him, it was like throwing the winning touchdown in the Super Bowl to him, and to seeing the reaction of the doctor that was in charge and the therapists that were working with him, and knowing that was a switch that I had found and paid for, or found funding for, and that was exciting. That was exciting. And it's life's little things that are the things that I'm most proud of. Those are the real touchdowns. And that was a big day. That was a bell ringer. That was one that you just couldn't believe it. That was even possible. And we see that a lot. Right now I work as a consultant at the hospital, and I work with a developer here in town trying to breathe life back into downtown Hagerstown, and we're having some success with that. But these are, it's not the big things it's not the stuff you read through the newspapers, it's the little things that happen that truly make a difference. And when we got it to work with that one individual, within a few weeks, we had 3 other quads using the same technology, so that's impacted on all their lives. So those are the type of things that excite me.
How do you think you got polio, or do you remember getting it?
No, there were...
How old were you?
I was 2.5.
Oh, so
almost 3 years old. And it was... there were huge epidemics of polio. I had three kids in my class that had polio. And
who were they?
Mary Bradshaw was one one of the girls. Rosalie Hickson was the other one, and myself. And Rosalie, she's passed away here in the last year, but if you look at the records for the Paralympics, the Paralympic Games, no one has won more medals in Olympic competition than Rosalie Hickson. She was from Warfordburg in that class.
What did she do?
Well, she did swimming, she did wheelchair basketball, she did track and field events, the javelin, the discus. She was just one whale of an athlete, and she had polio bad, but she had tremendous upper body strength. Her arms were. She was a country girl from Fulton County, and she was in the when they first started the Paralympic type competition. That was back in had to be about 64 or so, but she's won more awards and competition than anybody in the history of the games.
So how do you think it happened?
Don't know. A lot of speculation. It always seemed to happen in July, August, and September, in the dog days of summer when it was hot. And they always speculated with me, or I know your mother and my sister always felt that it came from monkeys that came through. My dad had a repair shop, and there was always somebody there that had to get something fixed, and they had a circus vehicle there that he was fixing that had monkeys on it, and we were playing with the monkeys. And Marion always seemed to think that had something to do with it, because of the 5 kids that were there that day playing with the monkeys. 3 of us ended up with polio. 2 of our cousins got it. Alice Kirk, Alice Layton, she got it. There was a guy named Myron Golden, another cousin, we called him Sonny. His name was Sonny Golden. He got it, and then I had it.
So Alice Kirk had it?
Alice had it, yeah.
Wow.
Alice had it in the neck and shoulders, and still has problems to this day with her neck. Sonny, I think he had it in his one arm, I believe, but he there weren't any. My problem, I was younger and I got it first, and they treated me for several weeks. They thought I had the flu. They didn't realize what was going on. So these temperatures had run so high that there was so much damage done before they finally got a diagnosis that it impacted greater on me than it did on them.
So it was yours down in Washington County Hospital that they took you, or where did
No. They, I think Mother first took me to Chambersburg, and they sent me on to Harrisburg. They diagnosed me with polio in Harrisburg, and immediately put me on a train. And I went from Harrisburg to Pittsburgh, to a place called the Industrial Home for Crippled Children in Pittsburgh. That time was dealing with polio, strictly polio at that time, and that's where I went. 2002, I went to the 100th anniversary of that hospital. I went back to Pittsburgh, and they had everybody from Mr. Rogers' neighborhood, of course, was based in Pittsburgh, and they were there. When I was there, it was one big old mansion, like all these rich people. They've been turned into a hospital. Now it's called the Children's Institute now, and it takes up about a city block of Pittsburgh, very large, and they're dealing with everything from cerebral palsy to various types of developmental disabilities to brain damaged children, spinal cord, and there's a whole variety of things now. Back then it was strictly polio.
What have been your biggest challenges in life?
it's hard to say what the
Marriage?
yeah, that's been a challenge. I didn't have the answers to. No, in all fairness, that was something I feel very bad about. I was married 18 years, and I always pride myself on being able to make things work, and being the great compromiser. That's one I failed miserably at, and I guess that probably was my biggest disappointment, that we couldn't make that work, but we didn't. And
well, you did for 18 years.
did for 18 years, exactly.
That was pretty good.
That was fairly significant, But we have a great daughter, 3 great grandchildren, and could have been worse.
Yeah. Yeah. Any other challenges?
Well, like every day is a challenge. There's issues. Just the challenges become opportunities. That's what. Like I say, I don't like bright and shiny things. It seems like I don't get involved until it's broke. Whether it be how to put things back together. So every day is a challenge. My life's been that way. And here again, the only way you overcome the challenges is being able to use the resources you have, and I have a lot of good friends and family support. When I went to, I guess I was about a junior in high school, they built a 2-story house, 2-story school in Southern Fulton. And this principal wanted me to go to Hancock because it was on 1 floor. Well, here again, and go back to that, don't tell me I can't do something. I never walked steps in my life, but I was over there several days, a week at the high school, trying to figure out how I could negotiate those steps. And after much frustration and figuring out how it worked best for me, I learned to get up and down those steps. When I went to the University of Maryland, I had never walked steps that didn't have a banister or railing. And I pull up to the front of my dormitory, and there's 16 steps to my front door of my dormitory, and there's no banister. And I mean, it was like, now what do I do? It's heart failure time. So you're always looking, and we figured out a way to do it. But
how'd you do it?
well, I had him trim a bush back where I could get over to the wall, and I would feel my way up the wall and use that. But after a while, you learn better technique, and it's like anything in life. If you work at it, if you want to do it hard enough, you'll find a way. You'll find it. And I wanted to do that.
Did we miss anything? Anything you want to say?
What's next?
Yeah. What's next?
Yeah. Your mother would kill me. I've still got a strong urge to do something here locally. I feel like I haven't accomplished what I want to accomplish. And I'm getting an awful lot of people encouraging me to run for county commissioner. And I may do that. I've got a lot of people asking me and offering support and all that type of thing. And my health stays halfway decent. I may give it a try. It's one of those things you pray about and you think about. And you look at the upside and the downside. And I'm reaching a point now where I've got to make up my mind whether I'm going to or not to.
Are you a Democrat?
Always. I think if you don't have 300 or 400,000 in the bank, and if you have any health issues, or anybody that you know anybody with health issues, or if you know any people that are growing old, if you're not a Democrat, you need to have your head examined. And I just am very frustrated right now with the path that the Republican Party has taken. And it's kind of the win-it-all cost. The tax cuts, the rich get richer, and the lack of movement with Medicaid. And Medicaid, I guess the star of them. I thought Condoleezza Rice was one of the few people they had married, and I found out the other day she used to work for Chevron. And
She's got an oil tanker named after her.
Yeah, I didn't realize that.
Duh.
Well, I just so disappointed that the American public has bought into what they were selling 4 years ago. And
it was fear.
Well, they used the fear factor very well. And we've got to.
Well, plus, Democrats didn't have a really, really amazingly strong candidate running.
Well, I don't know.
Like Kerry was okay, but he wasn't the strongest of the bunch.
When you look at that's in the unfortunate part of our system. Now we put people in to run for office depending on what state they're in, how many electoral votes they can bring. And probably the best Democrat, or one of the best Democrats we have out there right now, is Joe Biden. But Joe Biden will never get a chance because he's from Delaware. If he was from Texas, New York, or California, he would be hands down our candidate, you know. Or if you're a Democrat and they think you can deliver one southern state, you can probably be the vice president, because you can't win unless you can deliver. At least the Democrats can't win at this moment in time unless you can deliver at least one southern state.
Who's our next Democratic president?
Probably Hillary.
You think?
She's got a shot, depending on who she can get to run with her. If she gets a strong enough Southern Democrat that can carry a state, she could win.
What if Hillary ran with Al Gore?
I don't know yet. Al Gore. I wish Al Gore would have been a little more visible the last 3 years since he lost.
Wait till you see his film out.
Okay, well, maybe I haven't seen it yet.
It's coming. It's out right now. It's awesome.
Okay, well, that's what it's going to take.
He is really intelligent.
Well, I'm not questioning that. I'm not questioning that a bit. He possibly could be. Possibly could be. It's going to be interesting the next 2 years.
Well, what about a third party? That's what I think really needs to happen. I don't see much difference between Democrat and Republican, except for Republicans are absolutely for big business, and Democrats seem like more for the real people. But I think there's plenty of Democrats that just are yes sir, no sirs.
Well, you have.
I think we need a third party.
Our family. Traditionally, I'm talking about the Hendershots and Kirks, have always been Democrats. And when I talk about the county commission race and all that, I have thought long and hard about dropping the affiliation and running as an independent. The party, the group that's growing the fastest here in Washington County are those that are dropping the parties and becoming independents, because they don't like either one of them. They're saying primarily what you're saying.
Yeah.
You can't tell the difference. There's no black and white anymore.
Yeah.
The Democratic Party has a little more tendency to deal better with social issues. The Republican Party, I don't even want to get involved. This is not the party of Lincoln. This is the party of Standard Oil and Chevron and the rich. You know, the...
Yeah, you know the Fortune 500? You know what the top 5 companies are? Oil.
Sure. And I guess, I think the Republican Party has been, a lot of damage has been done by this particular group, I think. This Dick Cheney just scares me to death.
I know.
Scares the hell out of me. No, he does. What are we going to start? The Bull Moose Party?
Why not?
Why not?
Why not? Did we say everything?
I think we said everything. Some of it we said twice.
Huh.
Maybe.
Well, give us a funny face then.
Well, how funny a face do you want?
Make a funny face.